Matt, welcome. How's it going? You well?
Yeah, doing well, man. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. You're welcome. Thanks for joining. This is the first one of the Go to Market Game podcast. We're very excited to have you on. Let's dive straight into it. Matt, give us an idea of who are you, what do you do, what's going on, and what sort of company are you working for right now?
Yeah, so I'm head of sales at Prospeo and a founder of two sales training communities, Sales Upskill
Excellent.
and Founder-Led Sales. So what's wonderful is I teach, we've currently got about 7,000 users across both platforms, and I teach them all the dark arts of sales and then actually practice what I preach with what we're doing at Prospeo, which is fantastic. So and for anyone who hasn't come across Prospeo, we're a B2B contact database, the best in the game. We triple verify everything, so it means you have more phone calls where you're actually having a conversation with people, and your emails will actually land, which is wonderful.
Love it. Awesome. That's great. And give us an idea of the go-to-market motion over at Prospero. When you first came into that role, what did it look like, and what have you sort of been working, what have you been developing in that time that you've been head of sales?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the Prospeo go-to-market strategy has been so weird and so wonderful, and it's gone through a serious change this year. Previously, and I can give you some indication on who our ideal customer profile is, but we would usually sell uh, our data to outbound agencies, so people are doing high volume emails and need to keep the bounce rate lower. And this, I'm talking like not your normal B2B SaaS. I'm talking, 500 to a million plus emails every single month. So crazy numbers. And then we started to, we were targeting also founders of startups and companies who had a more, I suppose, technically savvy RevOps function where they were using waterfall enrichment as part of their data, but which is also still such a rare thing
Yeah,
for sales
it is.
functions.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to now, right? So it's still the same target audience, so we're still going for founders, outbound agencies, but now because we're a database and not necessarily a step in waterfall and just for verifying emails, we're way more suited to those sales functions now. So we'll be targeting like your heads of, your VPs of sales, revenue, all those sort of roles. Uh, and so the reason for explaining that is previously our go-to-market strategy was literally all word of mouth. So if anyone knows outbound agencies, they all know each other.
Mm,
Every single one of them knows each other. It's one of the weirdest industries in the sense of all these competitors are just in WhatsApp groups with everyone.
I
So
know.
our go-to-market was purely word of mouth, and that got us to a specific point. And now we're really like changing the game. So with the new platform, we're now doing outbound, we're now doing marketing, we're doubling down on partnerships, and yeah, it's exciting. It's something that I've been very excited for, and yeah, it's working now, which is fantastic. So yeah, a lot more
Excellent.
to talk about on the outbound front
Yeah.
since the start of this year.
Love it. Awesome. So with those two distinct ICPs, you've got the outbound agencies and then you've got sort of individual companies that you're selling to. Um, you know, would you say that the foundation of Prospero has been built on outbound agencies and now the natural sort of next step is to move into that, going directly almost to the end user?
Yeah, 100%. So like, I mean, outbound agencies are fantastic, right? I think like one thing that sales functions in general, I mean, when you're in a sales function, you don't necessarily interact with outbound agencies because a sales function is arguably a competitor to an outbound agency and vice versa, right? So naturally, it's very rare that you see these two mix, unless I'm seeing this more now where sales teams focus more on the cold calling, and then they'll have an agency do the emailing outbound stuff and get some nice little clay tables set up and so on. But the outbound agency industry is limited. I mean, there are a lot of outbound agencies, but it is limited. You compare that to how many sales functions there are on the planet. There is one market that's, I reckon actually the outbound agency market wouldn't even make 1% of the sales function market. So it makes natural sense that we need to start appealing more to that market. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're still as appealing to outbound agencies as possible, because honestly, they do what's best practice when it comes to especially email. And also, if you meet some outbound agencies that are specialists in cold calling, the numbers that they do are insane. So, if we can still service that industry to the level that we were doing before and be able to then offer that to sales functions, it's just a win-win. And the reality is our competitors aren't at that level. Like well, we all know the big players of contact databases, right? I don't know a single outbound agency that uses any of them. I actually, I don't. Maybe some cold calling agencies would use Cognizant. I'm not sure, but they're not delivering that level of service. So that's the thing now. It's like we now need to educate people on, like, well, if these guys and girls can send 2 million emails a month without any issues, imagine what your sales function could do, you know? And that's the game we're playing.
So it seems like you've the foundation of Prospeo, like we talked about, was built around targeting outbound agencies who are at that cutting edge of tech, of infrastructure, of systems, of tactics, whatever it may be. And then once that's proven, once that's leveraged, then moving that into the end user. Like you said, a lot of these end user companies are using Zoom Info, they're using Apollo, they're using Cognism, like you said. But seeing that decline, sort of seeing the results decline year after year after year after year, and not really looking at data as the sort of addressable problem there. So I'm curious, with this new go-to-market motion that you guys have in play, what does it look like? I mean, how are you guys going after the end user? Give me a sort of an overview of what that's looking like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of two things. So we have our outbound email campaigns that we're running, and then it's a combination of that and then online content. So the posts that a lot of our partners are doing about us, the ones that we're doing about us, and all it is around building the hype. And myself, I'm doing cold calls, which is great fun, and I can share some of my little secrets on that, which have been surprisingly successful. But yeah, so that's it. But so far, the main drivers are our outbound email campaigns. I mean, the nice thing is, because we are a database, we have all the contact data.
Yeah, the data's sorted.
So we have to use it. So
Yeah.
we're driving that really hard, and also, like, we've got a lot of partners who love us to bits. And the launch since the 12th of January, I think Prospeo's been mentioned something like 420 times, like
Hmm.
literally in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, which
Wow.
is like crazy.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about that, I can't organize all of that. And I've got two colleagues who obviously are helping us build all this hype, but we're not even talking to that many people. So it's like we're now getting this like organic push with people that we don't know, but they're
Yeah.
like, look how good this is. And
Yeah.
it's the snowball effect of seeing all these other people talk about it, people are then testing it, and then within 2 weeks are like, oh yeah, I'm going to post about this, which I just like, it blows my mind.
It's like a
So
virality. It's like a virality that's been created there, and I think it's normally a great sign in a business if it can create virality, before it really goes out to market or
mm,
outbound, if that makes sense. Like if you look at another company like Clay, they've very similar tool which allows content creators to make really good content about it. And now they're building that sort of enterprise sales motion where they're going further to those end users.
yeah.
So
And
um,
and to add to that, by the way, I mean, Clay's a really good example of this. Like, if Clay was bad and still had partners who they paid, for example,
yeah,
it wouldn't have done what it did,
no,
because people would start trying it. They go, oh no, this is shit. I don't, well, I've lost all credibility for that person, right? And so it's a really good indicator for us, because we've, actually the feedback we've been getting. Yeah, we've had some teething issues as we've changed our product,
hmm,
naturally with everything, and we're on top of them and fixing them. But at the same time, despite that, people are like, holy shit, this is unreal. And also for them to say that about a data provider, right? Like,
yeah,
data isn't sexy.
no, it's
It's not a
boring as
sexy
anything.
thing. It isn't, right? So
Yeah,
it's like, it's weird to even see people talk about it in this way. But again, like we say, you're an outbound agency. You know the importance of, if an email's verified and it's not going to get flagged for spam and so on, that is way more valuable than 10 emails which have got question marks next to them. Like that can cause more damage than good. And it's the same with mobile numbers. Like there is no point dialing a mobile number that's not real. That's just a minute and a half wasted. So for those sales teams that are doing their 100 calls a day, there will be 60 of them that are pointless to even dial in the first place. So get rid of them, replace those with 60 better numbers, and then suddenly like booking 3 meetings in a day is suddenly realistic. And you say that to someone now, and they'll be like,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
3 meetings in a week maybe,
Yeah.
and that'd be good. And but it just shows how important that piece of the puzzle is.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the list and the data. I mean, somebody else said this. It's not me, but someone said this is the strategy. I think it was like one of the outbound operator guys. The list and the data is the strategy. You can build everything else. You can have the best reps in the world, but if you give them terrible data, a bad list, they're not going to produce results. Whereas if you give like an ordinary or average rep a really good list, they're gonna outproduce that really good rep, and then you can coach that average rep into becoming a really good rep as well. So,
Mm.
I think it's really interesting, and when you look at the marginal gains in a funnel as well, like if you break down cold calling into connect rate, pitch rate, conversation rate, meeting booked rate, if you tweak your connect rate by 1% over the space of an entire year, like if you zoom that out to an entire year, the impact that has on your pipeline is enormous. Like
Yeah.
depending on your average contract size, it could be worth millions just by improving it by 1%. So like you said, really focusing on that data, focusing on the list, it's so important. And the conversations that I have with revenue leaders, I often find that it's an area that is lacking and is like, and not a lot of zooming in is done on that area. There's other areas that are maybe more sexy that get looked at, but
Yeah, I
the
mean, most
marginal
people go
gain
to like
there,
they go to messaging, don't they? They're like,
they
oh,
go to
your
messaging.
messaging's wrong.
Yeah,
We haven't picked the right ICP,
yeah,
and actually, just they're sending emails from their main domain. They've been doing it for the last 15 years, and you look up the health of that domain, and it's awful. So it's like, cool, you're already like shot yourself in the foot, like before you've even started. And it's like, well, you have to then do all the infrastructure stuff that you guys are amazing at. Then it's the data, and then it's the messaging, right? It's like I always refer to that as like the three pillars, and it's like if any one of those pillars is incorrect, the
yeah,
whole thing fails.
yeah,
And then the problem there is like, well, cool, if you don't have the infrastructure or the data set up, and you have the great messaging, but because the other two are screwed, like then suddenly you're going to start self-doubting that messaging, and that could be the messaging. That is the message to the right person with the right pain point. You need to keep doing that, but you go, it's doing shit. Why?
yeah. And if your connect rate is not good enough as well, you're having less conversations. So even if your messaging is good, when someone picks up the phone, you're so unpracticed, and you go, oh my God, someone's just picked up the phone. You then trip yourself over going through the messaging. You don't get your tonality right. You don't get the emphasis on the right things right. You're not listening actively. And then you fumble that call, then you're not going to book them in the first place. So
Absolutely.
having that data, having that list properly mapped out with great data, improving your pickup rate, having more conversations, it's massive. But you mentioned earlier around cold calling and what you've been doing in cold calling. So I'd love to sort of like zoom in on what you're doing right now
Yeah,
there,
happy to.
and how that's been going.
And I mean, we're keeping it super simple, which is wonderful. So, because I'm in this position actually, which is really fascinating on my two co-founders, Hugo and John. Shout out to them too. People in the industry will know them from back in the day. But like, I need to prove to them that a sales function even makes sense, which is a really fascinating place to be because we're historically product-led growth. So people can go to our website, they can sign up for a trial, they convert, and we're very good at product-led growth. It's how we've got to today. There is a space for the bigger deals where you could justify a person handling them. And also we find at a certain size, people want to speak to someone, which I thought wouldn't happen, actually. I thought we could but we've had people go, no, I want to speak to someone. So we're like, okay, cool. Let's test this out. And then part of that, it's great to use the database it gives me way more conviction when I speak to someone, especially when I'm cold calling people and I'm cold emailing people and I'm seeing it work. So my flow is really, really straightforward. I'm targeting purely decision makers at businesses. That'll either be founders, of companies with maybe like 5 to 20 people, where founder-led sales is still important. And maybe they've got their first founding account exec or first founding SDR. This is pre them hiring a sales leader. After that, once the company gets bigger, so we're sort of looking at maybe like maybe 50 to 200 people. Sales leader function is in place. They've got a sales team, and then that's the other ICP. So they're going to be the ones making the decision on what contact data they go for. And it's wonderful because I do a few different things. I'm either targeting people who I can see are using the technology like Zoom Info or Cognizant, because we can see. So it's a case of my opening call. And just to let you know, I always go down the route of permission-based opener. Like I swear by that. I know some people kind of
Yeah, me too.
shit
To
on
be
it a
fair,
little
I
bit.
love them. Yeah.
It's easy, right? You just get to the no or the yes quicker, and it's a simple one, Tom. Where I'd be like, I'm calling you out the blue. I get that. Do you have a few moments why I'm calling you specifically, and I'll explain. And then that is usually enough. Go on then. And I'd be like, look, I'm speaking to heads of sales like yourself all the time. In your case, I know that you currently got a contract of Zoom Info, and I just want to let you know that there is a provider out there. There's a ton better, but there's no point us having this chat until we can probably coincide this when your next renewal is. So when is that happening? And I will set you up with a trial, and I guarantee you'll get better performance out of it. That is enough for them to normally tell me when their contract's up. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm just booking times in my calendar in 2, 3, 9, 12 months for when I know their renewals are coming up. That's one way of doing it. The other way, which is one of my favorites, by the way, is people are getting worried about the screening on phones now.
But yes, yeah.
So my best line on this for getting people to pick up is, "Hey, it's crazy boy Matt from Prospeo cold calling you right now. Wow, wow." And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about maybe the AI reading that out. That's just weird.
Yeah.
But I think that weird pattern interrupt, and I don't know why, but people are just picking up the phone. And I've already told them I'm cold calling them in that. It sounds crazy. And I tested this with a few friends to start, and then I started testing this with people I have no idea who they are, and I have not seen a difference in pickup rate with it, which I think is ridiculous, but also like there's a lesson to be learnt here, in my opinion. Is the outbound is like, yes, I've got my line manager who signs off on all the stuff we do, but he's not being strict with me on having fun with any of this stuff. And weirdly, having fun with it is a lot better than not having fun with this stuff.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's already quite a stiff industry. Do you know what I mean? And one thing that I pick up a lot, and I bet other people do as well, is with your content on LinkedIn. Is you have quite a fun personality. Your content is fun. Obviously you take it seriously, but you come across quite relaxed, quite loose, quite light, and I think taking that energy into a sales motion is so important. It's absolutely massive, because people, if you're stiff and someone's going to read your stiffness straight away, they're going to be stiff. Whereas if you can just lighten the load around it, realize it's not actually that serious. Nothing that we're doing is that massively serious. I think it's a big game changer.
It's huge, and I think I mean, I don't care if someone says no, right? I'm gonna get thousands of people to say no to me.
Yeah.
Like I just know that's a fact. But I also, I'm probably a bit more relaxed on what my target is and things like that, because I have got this really good product behind me, which half the time it sells itself, which is great. So, I can't take that for granted. Like there are tons of salespeople out there who are selling really tough products to sell, and they have to do way more of the heavy lifting. And they have to they'll probably have to do more activity than I would do, naturally, I think. But I also see what my total addressable market is.
Yeah.
It's fucking huge. Yeah. So, I can have a bit of fun and relax into this. And also we're such a small team, we can just try stuff so flexibly. Like getting a campaign signed off and maybe I can touch on some of the email stuff that we're doing alongside this. And I mean, you did touch on the content, and I've grown my LinkedIn to I'd say a pretty healthy number. There are people that are like I aspire to be, and they're on completely different levels to me.
Yeah.
But there are people in my network who I can easily now call, and they're like, you're that weird dude on LinkedIn and doing all those weird videos and stuff like that. And or the other stuff. I literally met someone the other day who downloaded one of my MedPick resources from like 2 years ago.
Wow.
And then we met each other. Easiest meeting I've ever booked in my life.
Wow.
Because he already had some form of like, you're a nice guy, you help people.
Yeah.
I'll give you the time of day.
Yeah.
And so that's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
think that's a really interesting area, and I think we can dive into that as well around personal branding and sales, because, like you said, like you've just touched on there, I think it is huge, and I think a lot of salespeople could really focus on building their personal brand. But there's two things that you mentioned just before when we were talking about cold calling, and I thought was really interesting. I just want to dive into that before we move on. One of them was around the qualification that you're doing straight away, where you can say, okay, I can see you're using Zoom info. When does your contract end? So you're going for that instant qualification to say, yes, they are using it, and boom, now we know when your contract ends. Instead of really forcing a meeting that doesn't need to be forced, you're kind of going for an activation, which then spreads out your pipeline and sort of helps you map out what the market looks like right now when those contract renewals are coming through. I mean, I find that really interesting, and I find a lot of companies that I speak to are just going for that meeting straight away and maybe burning their time when it doesn't need to be burned.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily, if they do that, I don't necessarily think it's burning the TAM. But what you've got to understand is what and I see the number change all the time, but it's like 3 and 5% of your market are in market right now. So your job is to find out who that person is. Who are that 3 and 5%? And it's simple as that. So if someone's not in market right now, I'm not going to waste my time trying to sell to them. Literally no point. There are some scenarios where people will double up something like our platform with someone else's platform.
Mm-hmm.
It gets complex with sales functions of that size, though. So there's no point. There's literally just no point. And I know people need data. They need it. Like if they've got a sales function, they need data. So that just becomes the game. It's like, well, if I get you at your buying window, my close rate skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
If I include loads of people that aren't in the buying window right now, my close rate plummets. So it's one of these ones where, and also, I have this conversation with someone, and this is the real magic, and we can touch on some of this stuff as well, because I think this is the most slept on thing in sales in general, especially with sales and marketing teams. But I then call that person back in 3 months' time, and I'm like, hey, Tom, you're probably not going to remember this, but we spoke 3 months ago. You told me your contract's coming up to renewal in 3 months' time. I've prepped a few things for you. And look, I'm going to honor that trial that I told you about. I've got some credits for you to play around with.
Mm-hmm.
That person on the second call, who's definitely forgotten I exist, is like, okay, guard comes down. Yeah, I did. How does this person know? Yeah, I think I do remember. Okay, well, he's really enthused, and let's hear him out. And it's like, bam, that second call is like the conversion rate of that's even higher than the first. Like, even higher. And it's so it's a long game to play. Like if you've got a target looming over your head, and you are in danger of performance plans, then maybe this isn't the right approach to you.
Yeah.
But you do that enough times over enough few months, you know, in 3 months' time, I'm going to be insanely busy.
Yeah.
Which I'm looking forward to.
And I think that is maybe a point there around how sales orgs like build out what their quotas look like. Okay, you need to book this many meetings in a month, but not looking at what percentage of the market have they activated for future pipeline. Obviously, if someone's not performing, if they're not doing anything, put them on the pip, get rid of them, whatever. But I think there is a lot to be said for orgs that completely skip over the activations, those conversations. Me and Louis call it conversation maxing. That's what we're trying to do when we're working with a company. We want to get as many conversations happening with your market as possible. Because most people aren't, like we said, most people aren't in market. Maybe 3% are in a buying stage. Maybe. It depends on the market, okay? You're doing a lot of calls. You're going to speak to a lot of people that aren't in market. You have to be activating them and nurturing them in. And I think what you brought up there was, having good back end systems in place so that your reminders are there, when to call them up, you've got that information ahead of them, and then coming into that call with goodwill as well. So I'm going to honor that trial. Here's a bunch of free credit. I can show you exactly how we're going to outbeat the whatever tool you're using right now. I think that's huge, and I think a lot of people zoom in on the short term, like what are we doing right now, instead of building out, okay, if we can have 10,000 conversations in a year, there's no way that we don't convert X percentage of that into, enormous pipeline, which then converts into enormous revenue in,
Absolutely.
6 to 9 to 10 months to 12 months in the future.
Like, yeah, and you think about the amount of data you just collect in those conversations in general, right? My word. But again, people kind of look past that data and go, I want the meeting booked.
Yeah.
But I like looking at all the conversations I've had with all the information. And again, like, now we've like I've just purchased a tool to do cold calling through called Just Cloud.
Hmm.
I've never heard of them before. And before I was always using SalesLoft, Outreach, all that sort of stuff. But this is just a simple dialer. I can make mobile numbers in every country, so I'm calling from a local mobile. And afterwards, I get the transcript, I get the summary, I get the pain points, all of this. I've got all that information. So again, when I reach out to them next time, I've got my little summary of information. And it's like that data is just incredibly valuable. So another thing we touched on really quickly is when you mentioned about like the trial. And I've got strong beliefs in this. I think there's two things that people really sleep on. Is one is the offer. Like offers are so incredibly powerful.
Hmm.
And then the other one, I'm hoping one day this will stick. I mean, there's definitely a term for this already, but I'm trying to coin value first marketing and value first sales. VFS or VFM.
VFS. Yeah.
And the idea is like what things are actually valuable to your ICP, your ideal customer profile. I'm talking to a head of sales. What are the things they struggle with? Ramping reps, training reps because they're too busy doing pipeline management or aren't very good at training. 9 times out of 10, that's the case. And their team aren't quite hitting targets and they can't do the training. And therefore, that's not helping them hit target. And then
Hmm.
they're kind of in this sort of stuck space. So for me, I'm thinking, what stuff would they really value? So we've just come out with the ultimate prospecting cold calling guide to help your team cold call. And it's based off incredible amounts of data. I've spoken to 4 different sales leaders on this who have got really good sales function. So I've just like gathered all this information and then we've turned it into a guide. Have it for free. Nice. I'm sending this to every single one of the sales leaders I've got in my network. I'm going to send this to every single sales leader I've got got the email for, and I'm going to ask for absolutely nothing in return. Nothing. And I'm going to do that multiple times. And I will bet money on that helping me convert business. And also in it, I've got like little bits about Prospeo and the importance of the data in the
Of
cold
course.
calling.
Yeah.
I can link it, and I think that's an important step where this value first resource I've created, it's not an advert for Prospeo.
No.
Prospeo's in it though. But it makes sense to how we've sort of embedded it in. But I'm going to go and help all these people. And I did this with my 2 communities. I've given away tons of stuff for free over the last almost 3 years now. And it's like you build little bits of favor with people. They like you a little bit more. And also, by the way, like to add to this, and this is, we're all intrinsically selfish. We always think about ourselves first. So if you can put yourself in a position where you're going to either help someone with something or make them laugh or both, then they're going to be way more open to you in general
Yeah, and they're
because they're
going to
just
likely
thinking
want to
about
repay
themselves.
that favor as well at some point.
Yeah, and it may not necessarily be like in my head, I'm going to repay this guy's favor, so I'm going to book a meeting. But it's more next time I speak to them, they're going to be like, I like this guy for some reason. I'll hear him out. And that's enough for me to be like, tell me about your contracts.
Yeah.
Who's your data provider?
Yeah.
I've heard mixed things about them. What do you think about them?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, same. If I could show you something that, I'd bet money is good.
Hmm.
Would you like to just try it out for free? And if you hate it, you hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then. Like,
Why
yeah.
not?
So, yeah. Value first sales, value first marketing. Matthew Putnam, quote, 2025.
Love that. Make sure you get that
2026, oh
copyrighted,
my
mate,
God.
otherwise I'm going to steal it. So
I'm in the wrong year.
2026, mate.
Yeah.
A year behind. So awesome. I mean, yeah, I completely agree. So moving on to the other aspect of your outbound at the moment, which is cold email. I'd love to know a little bit more around, what are your goals for cold email? How are you building it out? What does your infrastructure look like? I'm really interested because there is a lot of information out there around cold email. A lot of information I've given out and a lot of other people as well. So I'm really curious to see what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've kept it relatively straightforward in the sense of, so, we're using Email Bison, we're obviously using Prospeo
Hmm.
data. here are some stats. Most companies have one domain and an email for each person in their sales function. I think we have got a grand total, I think, of 162 domains and about
Nice.
700 mailboxes. So what we're doing is we're testing messaging now, and then the plan is to scale that once we know what's working. What we're doing is we've got a ton of tests on at any one time.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's like 15 running right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just kind of turning off the ones that are like, not hitting as hard as we thought. Shift. And we're obsessing over just testing what messaging works. And the fascinating thing is, what we're doing is even if we don't like something, we're still testing it anyway. So I may challenge Hugo's idea on what would work and what I think is a problem for a sales leader or an outbound agency, and he's going to challenge me on the same. Instead of us just picking one, we go for both.
Yeah.
At least that way, the number will actually tell us.
Get them to fight.
Yeah, and if someone's right, they're right. If someone's wrong, they're wrong. Doesn't really matter. We factually know now. So yeah, we're sending. Our volume is now starting to scale. I mean, it was amazing. Our first campaign, I think in the first, what was it? I have the stats somewhere. But yeah, in our first ever campaign, we ran 12 different things.
Yeah.
And we don't track open rate, but our response rate was 9.8%, and our positive response rate on that was something like just shy of 70% of them.
Okay.
Which was like, we've come out of the gate swinging. I was like, this is not
very
normally,
impressive.
It doesn't normally go this way. And
I can tell you now it doesn't. So.
yeah, right. And we've done some campaigns now that are like bringing the number down, and we've targeted different ICPs, which are, actually our response rate from outbound agencies was ridiculously high. It's less for sales leaders, so it's kind of like that's starting to even out now. But we're still hovering around sort of the 5% response rate, which is like,
it's very healthy for cold email. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting above 1%, it's great. Yeah, so you can, like you said, you can scale that. And with your TAM, you've got volume to scale into. So with those ones that you've tested so far and you've switched off, was there any that you were like that you came in with an inherent bias towards? To say, okay, I think this is going to work, but that didn't work, and I'm curious, why do you think those didn't work?
Well, not necessarily inherent bias. It's more we've made assumptions on pain points for all the ICPs. So we've got 4 pain points for every single one of them. Don't get me to quote them now because I'm not going to remember them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And so it's been a relatively fair test between all of them, and it's just one's better than others. So for outbound agencies, quality to cost ratio, that's the really important thing, because there are providers like us who are way cheaper, claim to be verified, but they don't verify in the same way we do. So it's like, how do we balance that costing point? For sales functions, it's a bit easier because one of the things we're testing now is like the admin side of things for their sales function, reducing all of that because they have more calls and having to do less things, do less building and all this sort of stuff, versus the pain point of hitting targets and stuff like that because they're not having enough. So we'll test those two. I've got an assumption that the revenue number will be the more important one, but do you know what? Let's see. I have no idea. And and that's an interesting one because I'm not going into this at all thinking I know what's going to work and what's not. I've got some really good ideas on, I know how to structure an email well. I know how to get someone to read an email. One of my inherent skills is relevant clickbait in subject lines.
Nice.
I don't know what it is, but I can see a subject line and be like, that would be.
That's going to work. Yeah.
Or that one will work, right? But it's relevant clickbait. You click into it and then the subject line makes sense with the content. So it has to make sense. Otherwise, it's just like that's when you annoy people. It's very much like which I love this because it's like we are experimenting. And again, I don't have that pressure of trying to impress someone who's my boss, for example. And again, I think that's because Hugo trusts me with this stuff anyway. But I think one of the people really challenged with, especially sales reps, if they are writing their own emails, which is something I don't always suggest unless they're super experienced. But you've got this awkward scenario where you're trying to show the person you're emailing you know what you're talking about, so it builds confidence in yourself. You're also writing an email that, in theory, if my boss sees it, are they going to bollock me about it or not? And just naturally by doing that, it probably makes your email shit. Versus like that opening line being just a little bit weird. Why is that there? You know, the classic one, I think one of my favorite emails I ever saw was from Cognizant. And they sent me an email saying not interested in the subject line. I've never clicked an email so quickly in my life.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, that's infuriated afterwards. I was
Yeah.
like, you
Well,
got
that's the
me.
thing though. When you opened it, was the sort of rage bait, the clickbait, too much where you couldn't even get value out of the contents of the
No, I
email?
did think it was quite good. It was more
Yeah.
like it was advertising something about how to avoid it. And it was the opening line was, yeah, that hurts. I was like, yeah, goddamn, it does hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt me. So, so yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think you kind of have to step out and go, like, I don't know what's going to work, so let's find out what's going to work. I have some assumptions. Let's test the assumptions. Let's do all the basics, right? So, length of email. You know, are we opening with something that shows this is for them? Is it a relevant problem? Is it a relevant observation? Does the solution make sense to it? And the offer, really, because just to let everyone know who's listening, a meeting booked isn't an offer. I'd love to have a chat with you about this, Tom. Of course you fucking would.
Yeah.
Of course you would. But it doesn't necessarily mean I want to have that chat as the potential buyer. So, you know, what is the offer? Now, I think having that call line at the end as your CTA does work, but you have to have nailed the
The
observation
offer.
and pain
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Because if they have got that pain right now, they will take the meeting
Yeah.
100%. And then that comes back to our whole thing about the 3% in market right now. So if you
Hmm.
nail that 3%, and then let's have a call about this, I can show you some cool stuff, they'll say yes. Or the stuff that's been working really well for us, how many credits would it take to test if
Convince
this
you.
is better or not?
Yeah.
People come back saying 1,000.
Yeah.
Cool, here's 1,000 credits then. Test it.
Yeah.
Let's have a call. Yeah.
That's a really cool that's a really cool line, sort of like giving them it's sort of it's like a soft question. It gives them the it's on them to reply. It sort of gives them the power. That's what I'm trying to say. And then it helps to qualify their need as well. Like, do you know what I mean? If they come back and say 20,000 credits, you know, okay, maybe these guys need some serious help here.
Yeah.
So that's
But
cool. That's
also
really
like
cool.
it's the confidence in that, right? Like
Yeah.
we're putting a lot on the line there. Like we're going like, yeah, name it. What would it take? Because I know it's going to work. I know either way. So
Yeah.
just tell me. Let's get done with.
Yeah, get that. It's good confidence up front as well. Do you know what I mean? It's that conviction behind having a great product allows you to be a little bit cheeky up front. You know, you find that when people have terrible products, they start to get all stressed out, and then they just all these guardrails come in, and then they think, oh my gosh, email doesn't work, and it's like, no, it's just probably you're in the wrong vehicle here. Do you know
Yeah,
what I
they don't
mean?
have product market fit or something along those lines,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And unfortunately, sales reps they have no power over product market fit.
No, they don't. And they should probably ditch that as soon as they can and move on to someone
Yeah,
else.
but you know, I've suggested that more. And again, I train salespeople, which is part of my living, and it's like sometimes you'll see a product, and I'll be just quietly being like, you're doing the right things here. So what I would suggest at this point is job search.
Yeah.
just just have a look. Just have a look, because I mean there is some scenarios. I've had a couple of jobs where we didn't have product market fit, and I've never worked so hard in my life, and I didn't necessarily get the reward for it.
Yeah.
But actually, I learned other skills around how to start testing like crazy, how to get things working and stuff like that. And yeah, sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is the case.
You build that resilience, I guess, from
Oh yeah,
working for a
100%. I
company that
mean,
doesn't have product market fit. You,
it's
you get that you get those reps in definitely.
it's tough.
One of
Yeah.
the things that you were talking about there that I thought was interesting was around, around reps doing their own emails, and something that I've seen over the past sort of 18 months is a consolidation of outbound email away from reps and more into a centralized sort of channel for companies doing outbound email. So, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you think that that should be the case? And if that is the case, is it now more that it is a marketing function rather than a sales function with all of that testing? Because all of this seems like marketing, copy testing, you know what I mean? These little tweaks that we're doing, it's almost like advertising.
I'll be honest, I've got some rather strong views on marketing and sales.
Okay.
And also marketing is so many different things. Like a sales function, in my opinion, is a marketing function.
Hmm.
Outbound is just marketing. It's the company name popping up in different places and getting eyeballs, right? So us cold calling, us emailing, same thing. Where I think the responsibility of this stuff sits is with whoever's most qualified to write this
Hmm.
stuff from a sales perspective. Because most marketing people who don't have sales experience, they will write a marketing email. That'll be awful as an outbound email.
Hmm.
Like facts, it just will be. I'll make a a huge generalization here, but like, the use of like emojis and stuff like that, which, have a place in a marketing email, do not have a place in an outbound email. Simple as. And it's a simple thing. I'm not saying that all marketing things just put emojis everywhere and sunshine and rainbows. That's not the case. But like that is the case. Where it does work though is like when marketing and sales are aligned on, hey, this is our most used free resource that helps our prospects be impressed by us. Okay, that sales team should be sending that to everyone, direct messaging people on LinkedIn, email. So there's some crossovers. So for me, I think I don't really mind who owns the messaging as long as the person who's the best at writing it from an outbound perspective. Because an SDR who's been in a job for a year, they don't have enough skin in the game to know yet. They just don't. Unless they are an absolute wordsmith and psychologist who understands just how people think all of a sudden. Like they haven't experienced enough yeses and nos to know how to write it. In the same way, I think a marketing manager who's had no sales experience, same thing.
Yeah. It's all about
So
the training as well. Like if you've not had the training, how are you going to know what to write? I mean,
yeah,
and all of this data that and all of this information that surrounds cold email now, that all of the gurus will tell you around cold email, is built off the backs of probably hundreds of millions of cold emails that have been sent and the
yeah,
results
right.
back on it. So
And that's what I was saying earlier about like, I'm now starting to see some sales functions outsource that element of their game to
yeah,
outbound email
yeah,
agencies. And I think that's the right thing because it comes back to the same thing. I think they are better at it than
yes,
probably who they have in place at the moment.
yeah,
A RevOps function who's really good at infrastructure and database and all that stuff will be most likely shit at writing emails. So it
hmm,
should sit with them. Heads of sales, a lot of the time, emailing back in the day, this is what worked.
yeah,
Doesn't work now. So not the best person for it. Enterprise SDR who's been hitting target for 6 years running. Probably the best person for it. Therefore, they should own the writing of it, or whoever's going to own it. But do you see, it always comes for me. That's where it comes back to. So, and also it comes back to like the agreement in who the ICP is, what their
hmm,
pain point is. This is always a really interesting experiment to do with any company. Is individually go and speak to everyone and get them to fill in who the ICP is and what the problems are. 95% of the time, everyone's got a different opinion.
wow,
95% of the time. So you
yeah,
then bring them down to what is the ICP. So me and Hugo, funny enough, we've been talking about our ICP pre the launch, where we do all our outbound. We've been literally talking about that for 10 months. I've been having conversations for 10 months in preparation for this. So we've got so much data in the lead up to this where we're like, we know what we're testing. We like with conviction, we know what we're testing. We'll see what works. And yeah, it's and I think that's how we've come out the gates swinging, to be
hmm.
honest. But
I think that's where
yeah,
the conversation maxing comes in. What I mean, like you said, you've got all this information, all these transcripts, all these calls, all this information, and then the beautiful thing now is that everyone's got access to LLMs. You can put all of that information in there and get really good summaries of. You could have 1,000 conversations, consolidate that into a really strong battle card of this is our ICP. These are the people who are saying they're most interested. This is their key pain points, and it's really interesting because when you do that, we do this all the time. We take our calls, we put it in, we do our sales calls, our demo calls, our cold calls, all of it in, and we find things quite often that we didn't expect to see. You know what I mean? In there that come out as pain points, and those assumptions that we came into it with, into those campaigns with, sometimes get proven wrong. But that leads me to a sort of a follow up question around AI, which is like a huge buzzword these days. Everyone's talking about it. I mean, where do you see it fitting in a sales organization, and how are you leveraging it at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think your example there is like a fantastic example, to be honest with you. So, like, I see it probably most used in two places,
Yeah.
and these two places are usually wrong. So, I think what was really important about the example there is you're using the LLM, but you're giving it all the context. We're giving everything to it. I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of context on just who we've spoke to
Hmm.
about things, and it's that context that then is going to help the GPT or the Claudes do what they need to do. I'm not going to the GPT or Claude and going, "Hey, I work at Prospeo.io. Who's my ICP? What's their pain points?" Because what they all do is they've got access to all the bits of information. They're just giving you the average answer back from it all.
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, that average answer is just average. So you'll then pump that into something, and it'll just
Yeah.
give you average results, and then you
Yeah.
think it's shit.
Yeah.
Versus, like you say, the transcripts of actual words spoken by the person, and the stuff that maybe I've missed because I emotionally react to things differently, and so therefore I hear the thing I want to hear and go, oh yeah, well that's the thing. But suddenly the problem that they've actually mentioned that's really painful is something else, you know. So there's two places I see it being really successful. One is ICP refinement. So
Hmm.
again, the exact example: take all this information and just keep continually refining the ICP, and then using that for messaging and variations of messaging. So, but again, I would give it the source material. So these are some of the emails that are working really, really well. How else could we do this? And then get it to like spin out versions for me with tests with different pain points and things like that. So, I mean, they're two of the things. And then, sometimes for content creation, but again, it's easy just to go and ask it to go and make you something. So like when I make a resource, I mean, luckily, I've been making all this training for years upon years upon years, and at the same time, I'm continually talking to people who are better at it than I am, and I've got all these words stored. I've got all these words. So whenever I'm getting it to create content for me or things like that, I'm providing it thousands and thousands of words as part of my prompt.
Hmm.
Like, I want to create X, Y, and Z using this. So it's always being provided incredible source material, and then it does its thing really quickly, which I wouldn't have been able to do in that same period of time.
Yeah, it's
So
the speed of that data comprehension and amalgamation of all that data. I think is huge. But I'm curious on your thoughts on, because you see a lot of posts on LinkedIn and stuff, and it's like fire your sales team, fire your marketing team. This one N8N or ChatGPT script is gonna change your life or
yeah,
whatever it may be. Um, you know, where do you see in the next sort of 5 years or so? Do you see that happening? Do you see the sales rep being dinosaured, being retired, or I mean, how do you see it progressing?
I think maybe people will be able to do more with less. I do see a world with that, but you adjust what people do. So like there is a world where if you've got your product market fit, you've got your messaging, and you've got your ICP, and you want to scale to the moon, well, you get to a position where your email campaigns are set up like we've got. So our sales function right now is two of us plus someone who's helping us with the emails, right? So there's three of us in theory. But we're booking in as many meetings as like like a team of just 4 people devoted to cold calling and stuff like that. Like we are doing more with less, but it means when we scale that, we will do more with less. Again, we're going to scale in a different way. So I'm starting to see that I think cold calling is going to work incredibly well for us. I now want to potentially get the best cold caller I can find that exists to do more of that stuff. And that's what it comes down to. So like the admin side of things, all the things that are like just take loads and loads of time. That's what we're trying to find fixes for with AI. That's where we're like, okay, well, this process, let's solve that with that. But anything to do with human interaction and stuff like that, with the follow-ups and stuff like that, it's all human because we understand better than I'm not going to get AI to respond to emails. Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
No.
I'm not going to get AI to cold call people.
No.
I'm never, ever going to do that, because AI can't have a joke with someone in this.
No.
They're not going to leave a voicemail going, "Hey, it's Matt cold calling you. Wow, wow, we were," or whatever. They're not going to do that. So there's this lack of, pattern interrupts and something like that. So, look, I think people, they always run with this stuff because people want more with less. Naturally,
Of course.
it means better. It means better profit margins. It potentially means hitting target easier. So it's always going to be a hook that gets people really, really interested. 98% of the time, you'll dive into these things and it'll be incredibly disappointing.
Yeah. It's
Like, it just
bullshit. Yeah.
will be. Like, can you use some of this stuff to enable a team better? Yes, you can do that. But it's about enabling the team better.
Yeah. Building
And then
that
that
sort of
means
like exoskeleton around them so they become super soldiers.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And now, before doing that, you need to find out if you've got product market fit and the right messaging, right? You shouldn't then be like, "Oh, let's use AI to work this out." 'Cause it's not going to work it out. It won't work it out. Facts. Bet money on that. I mean, I've asked so many AI SDR functions to provide me testimonials of happy customers who have lasted more than 6 months. I've not had a single company do that.
No.
And the one company that was able to do that, were able to do that because their AI SDR is paired with a real SDR and a human person who's doing the cold
Right.
calling.
Yeah. It's
Like,
funny, I could probably provide 100 negative testimonials from sales calls that I do with organizations that have used an AI SDR and thought, my God, I've just spent 6 months doing this and we have got nothing off the back of it. Like, I'm talking zero. Like, some of them are getting zero replies, even negative replies from the back of these, which is crazy.
you'll find that most of the people that are in the position where they're firing their SDR function or AE function because of, they're the ones who actually should be fired.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's going to be the clip we use at the start of the video. Because it's true. They're not, and it comes back to things we've spoken about. They don't know how to write an email in a compelling way. They don't know who the ICP is,
Hmm.
and therefore they're like, "Oh, sales function's not working. We should get rid of it."
Yeah.
No, sir.
You should get rid of yourself.
Fortunately, you are the problem in this scenario,
You're
right?
the
You are the
problem.
problem.
Yeah.
So, get fired. That's what I'm saying.
Love it. Love it, man. So to wrap up, what do you think from a go-to-market perspective? What do you think is overrated advice? What do you see that's peddled all the time that when you see it, you just grind your gears and you think, oh, this is a load of bullshit?
This is probably like a generic one, right? But I see it so much because it happens because it is generic, I suppose. But it's as soon as you see the classic, do this thing for this channel, all the other channels are dead. And I see that so often, and unfortunately, people see it and they want to do it. But you'll then see that the person is either peddling a service that
Yeah.
solves that thing, right? Or they're awful at the other two channels, like LinkedIn or cold calling. So every time you see that, just ignore it. Because
Take a breath.
yeah. And actually, if you need to have conversations, call people. Like, do that instead. And then from that, work out your messaging with your emails. And then once you've got your messaging with your emails, do a text version of it, which you then use on LinkedIn to DM people with. So you're not sending an email version of it. All channels work, and they work the best when all combined. But kind of do it in that order. Like, anyone who pushes otherwise, I can literally tell you right now, they have not been in the game for however long, and they don't know what they're talking. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Simple as.
It's like a signal that it's a signal that they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a red flag in itself.
The lie alarm goes off.
Yeah.
It's like you are, and you're going to scam someone out of their money probably to some degree.
Probably, yeah. And then we're gonna have to pick up the pieces later.
Yeah.
But also, Matt, well, look, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on. I think it's been a really insightful conversation. I don't know if there's anything that you want to plug at the end of this or give a shout out to.
Look, I think we've plugged it a ton in this, but hey, Prospeo.io, I am the head of sales, so message me directly so I can earn that sweet commission, okay? And prove out that sales function should exist here. Maybe I'll give you a deal or
Maybe.
a really good trial. How many credits will it take? How many credits? I'll give them to you.
So DM Matt with how many credits it would take. I'm DMing him 1 million, so we'll see what he gets.
Yeah. I will be ignoring that.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. No problem, man.